mix of sand, silt and clay. Wherever you are in the world, earth will always be a mix of those in different proportions. And what makes it possible to build with is the clay. The clay acts like a natural glue. That's what makes mud sticky. So we put the earth in water, let it sit in water for a few minutes, and then we start to mix it, and we add in sand to balance, because if there's too much clay, if the proportion of clay is too high, when it dries it'll crack. So we have to add in a little bit more sand, and then we add in straw, as you said, for strength, just like in concrete. And so we get a mix like this, which can then be used to plaster a wall or tires, build a house even. Okay, so...
Oh, it's cold, it's so nice.
Yeah, it's been
Probably
sitting
novels, it's really fun to do.
Yeah. So another method that we do is we make bricks. Try this out. And we'll try to just fill up the frame with the material. It's very forgiving material. You can do a lot of different things with it. It's very versatile. It's one of the great things about it. You know, you're working with your hands. It's really one of the really nice things.
You can shape it whatever you like.
Shape it, yeah.
Shelves and stuff and around.
Yeah. So then hold the frame with two hands and just try and lift it off straight up.
Do you let it dry?
Yeah, we let it dry on the board like that. There we go. Very good. So
nice.
So it just holds its shape like that, and then it'll just dry.
In the end, you can smooth it.
You can if you like. Although it depends, you know, what you want. So you know, it'll dry like this. And I mean, you could throw it on the ground, it would break, but if you stack them together in a wall, then it's very, very strong, and you can cement them together with the same material, basically. So that's one method that we use. Another method would just be using the same material, but for plaster. So you can build in different ways.
Actually, like a brick, you cannot even tell that this is mud sometimes.
Yeah, when it's an interior like this.
The oil makes it waterproof.
Right, exactly. So you can build wherever you are, so long as you stick to certain principles. We call it the good hat, good shoes, good coat principle. Okay, so good hat, like this house in Canada, there's snow all around it, but it's an earth-built house. It's a mud house, and it's fine because there's the good hat, which is the roof, which protects from snow and from rain, gives shade. The good shoes means that the earth plaster doesn't actually touch the ground. It sits on something which is impervious to water, like concrete or stone, just like the bench over there. So water doesn't come in from underneath. And the final thing, the good coat, like you said, we use oil, and we collect our used cooking oil from the kitchen. You build in different ways according to the type of climate that you have. So for example, earthships. Earthships are passively heated and cooled buildings, and that works very well, for example, in the deserts in Arizona, places like that, where the temperature at night gets low, and so the building cools down because of the night temperature, and then that cool temperature goes into the house. So there's a lag. So these are very thick walls that are very solid. They're thermal mass that absorb the temperature, and in the summer, and during the day, the building is cool. At night, it'll be warm because of the heat from the day, from the previous day. So that's one method that you can use. However, that doesn't work here. Here, our climate is that in the summer, it can still be very hot at night, like 30 degrees. So the building doesn't have a chance to cool down. So we need to use, instead of thermal mass, we need to use the food scraps that produces methane gas, which collects here in this part. So it's like a balloon. and then we can actually use the methane gas. Let's try it.
Nice. It's amazing. It's just a waste for most of the people.
Yep. So this is just for demonstration, but we have a working system in our campus that the students cook on all the time. So that's, I mean, you can make a homemade system, but there was a guy who was a student at the Arava Institute down the road from us a few years ago, and he was very inspired by this whole idea of biogas, and he started to produce a commercial system which you can buy and set up in your own home. So there's a burner here. This is the burner that it comes with.
Do you know how much it can produce? Like,
Yeah, well, if you're feeding it, if you feed it,
You can barely see the fire, right? It's so like transparent.
but it's
it's the same like gas from our home.
Yeah, of course.
if you feed it, I'll show you the system over here.
Nice picture.
This is the commercial system. So it comes in a cardboard box like this. You unpack it and set it up. It takes a short time to set it up. This has 1,200 litres of water in it, and that's where the biodigestion takes place. You put the food scraps in here. The gas collects in here. There's some sandbags to give it a little bit of pressure, so that it will go into the kitchen. And if you feed it, it can take up to 6 litres of food scraps a day. But between 1 and 6 litres, say, a day, and you'll get here when it's full, it's supposed to give 2 hours of cooking time.
Nice.
But it'll keep producing the gas all
To fill my tanks in the car.
the
Basically, you can have your fuel.
with using methane to run the car. Interesting. I'm not sure. I know that you can use there's types of vehicles which use like vegetable oil and things to run on, right?
Oh yeah, but the normal like the cars that run.
You know about compost? I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
So we're taking food scraps or green material which is rich in nitrogen.
This is like it deteriorates, and the water is sinks like in the ground, like a how do you call it,
Fertilizer.
It's-
Well, we're creating soil,
yeah.
but we do it in piles. Okay, so we have, and it's in permaculture. What we do is we teach permaculture here. Our course is permaculture, and permaculture is about looking at nature, understanding what goes on in nature, and trying to apply those principles to our own lives. So in nature, one of the important things is there's no such thing as waste. Everything goes back into the system. So if you think about a forest, the material falls on the ground and it decomposes and turns into the soil that feeds the plants.
And it always have this covering
Right.
because it's like healthy environment. It's how it should be.
Yeah.
Just copy the nature. It's the
Exactly.
best.
So we take our food scraps and green material from the garden, which is rich in nitrogen, and then we add dry material, which is rich in carbon. So we have layers of nitrogen-rich and carbon-rich material, and we
And
make
not mixing, right? Because layers is good.
layers is easiest.
Yeah.
If you mix it constantly, you can make it a very short process, but generally
Yeah.
we do it in 4 months. If you mix it constantly, you can reduce it to 3 weeks. But it's not really necessary. Water, of course, which we need because it's bacterial action that does all the breakdown, and they need water. So just like rain, but not too much water, because we want an aerobic process, so we have to make sure that we have lots of oxygen, right? Add in the air. And
Important ingredient.
And what we get at the end is soil, basically. I mean, this is really, I think of it as a miracle
With
of
worms.
nature.
With worms.
Well, worms, we have a worm composter. Here
Oh.
worms don't occur naturally. But what happens is that there are
Bacteria,
invertebrates and bacteria and fungi. They do all the breakdown of the material, and it's really very, very important, particularly here, because I mean, we don't have any soil naturally. This is what we have here. It's just basically sand and rocks.
But it
You just go
actually
over there.
creates
But
ground.
we're creating soil.
Nature is just great.
Yeah. So there's
Magicians.
really no need for soil erosion and desertification. I mean, we can create our own soil with doing this process. And so we have very rich soil here. We've been doing this for 20 years. The other really important principle that we have here is the diversity, because nature is diverse. You know, agriculture, where we're just growing a monoculture system that's very artificial, and that's not what nature does. So we're trying to create a system which is in balance. We attract insects and birds by having different types of plants, and they help take control of the pests.
And tell me about the bees.
Yeah,
Bees are too important, right?
yeah, very important.
Or you can manage with
We've tried to keep bees, and you really need somebody who's expert at it a little bit, and I mean, we'd love to do it, but bees occur here naturally, or they come from, they use them in the agricultural fields to pollinate melons.
like if you produce here your own milk,
Honey.
honey,
Honey.
good too, like for the whole kibbutz.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to be able to do that, but we need somebody who's like studied it and can do it.
And people, there are many people that want to join and work here.
People are coming, yeah. It's nowadays there are families that are joining. What happens is you rent a place for a year and a half or something like that, and then you can become a member of the kibbutz. And the expectation is that people will be able to buy a plot of land and build a house. I mean, you know, it could be. I hope that some people will decide to build ecological houses.
How much is the land here?
I don't know what the exact prices are at the moment, but you get like a half a dunam of land, and I mean,
I hope one day the whole country will be like this. It's better than these cities and people.
garden. They buy a subscription to the garden and they take home vegetables. We're kind of starting things up a little bit.
Yeah, we're checking the soil here.
Черная земля.
That is black,
Yeah.
like so.
It's only the cover, the
So
bacteria. It's
moisture.
really making the,
Yeah. Well, if you look at the berries,
Да.
Вот он весь гаучик. Все, доказательство.
Она прям мягкая, когда ступаешь по ней, да?
Да. Вот он то, что он говорит, not compacted. Ты бы работал в таком месте, да? Вот
Да.
любишь.
we're really just kind of starting things up a little bit now.
I like the smell.
You can see here we've got onions growing, there's corn, and
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So soft.
Can I smell it?
There should be no smell.
You know, it's actually sweet, like minerals.
so this is a kind of a way of what we call companion planting, because we've got here onions, and the onions help repel pests. And so we've got corn here with the onions. So here there's sweet potato growing.
You know, this guy, Paul Gaucho, he covered the land with wood chips, and he says that the plants are healthy And that's why they are not putting the signal for the
Bugs.
pests, for the bugs to
Right.
take them.
That's interesting. There's a settling tank, and then it goes into the top one, and it filters through by gravity, through gravel and substrate, and there are plants, and that helps clean the water, and then the water can be used for irrigation. So that kind of method for recycling water can be used also for black water, for water from the toilets, if you use it on big enough scale. So that's it's a nice kind of water saving device.
Is it like in the tank of the water?
Yeah, so there's a that's one of it. That's the tank just between the, it's kind of like a settling tank between the two ponds. It'll come through.
Washing machine.
So what do we have here? This is the toilet block, and these are in fact composting toilets, so the waterless toilets, and the whole composting process takes place inside the bins here, just like in the regular compost. But we're using the human waste, which is rich in nitrogen. Instead of flushing with water, each one has the dry material,
Oh, okay.
which is for the carbon, and then the composting takes place inside the bins. Once one fills up, we move it aside and let it compost for about a year, and then at the end, what we get at the end, it's basically just soil.
It turns into soil. Oh,
So
human waste, it turns into
it works
soil.
very well, and we can then put the soil on the trees, and so we're saving water and making something beneficial. So we have this system here, and we have another one in our eco campus. It's not like the houses all have this, but for places particularly where there's no sanitation and there's no system for wastewater, this is very good.
So you just
So no water, you just
use this
add in.
instead of water.
Yeah,
It's like wood chips or what
it's
is it?
like dry straw.
Oh, dry straw. Interesting.
This was the very first inverter in the country.
Wow.
Solar panels that are generating DC current, and this converts it to AC, which goes into the grid. So now it's all standard, but this was like 15 years ago or something when we put that in. A shade all around. So one of the things that we teach is how you can design buildings which will be energy efficient. This one you need to watch a little bit. It can be a fire hazard. So the food in that one you can just leave it and it's fine. So this one you have to take care of.
And it's no air conditioning.
So well, there is air conditioning if you need it, but
right now it's not.
right now no. So we left this exposed just so that you could see how it's built.
Oh.
But it goes down to the base here. The only concrete that we have is just a ring around the base, and the whole thing just sits on that. So that's the good shoes, the concrete. The metal plate here is to stop termites from going into the straw bales, because we have a problem with termites. These were like regular concrete buildings. We just did some external covering. It's for aesthetics. It doesn't really give any energy efficiency, just to make the place look a bit nicer. But over here we have an example of what we'd like to do on all the buildings, maybe eventually, this is what's called a retrofit, where you take the existing building, which is made out of concrete, and then we added on the outside straw bales and cover the whole thing over with earth plaster. So it's we turn the building which was not energy efficient into something which is energy
So
efficient.
you got the base here with the
Yeah, so
tiles.
you extend the base with tires and some concrete, and then put the straw bales on that, and then cover the whole thing over with earth plaster. There's more that we would need to do really to make it, to do it properly. A shade structure over the top would be very important. Changing the windows to make them double glazed windows, but that's what would be the direction to go in to reduce the amount of energy needs. Because the problem that we have here is in the summer, the buildings that are made of concrete, they get very, very hot. And then you have to use air conditioning all the time. We'll go this way.
But without the cover, this strong sun makes cracks, no?
Right, well, it's not really the sun that makes cracks in the earth plaster. It's because, you know, when you have the right mix, it should be fine. But the problem that we have here is, and you'll see it when we go up to the campus, the movement of the earth. It's we are in an active zone here for earthquake. So the earth sometimes moves, and that makes cracks in the buildings.